Football. Wildcats. Football. Wildcats. Football. Wildcats. Football.
I got it.
Football. Wildcats. Football. Wildcats. Football. Wildcats. Football. Wildcats.
Welcome to the Married with Picks podcast, season 5, episode 12, week 12. Wait, I got the wrong papers. Okay.
What?
I got the wrong papers. I got last week's papers.
Uh-oh.
Okay.
Do we have to burn those? How bad was last week for you?
No, I got, I'm a little under the weather, dear, so I got myself confused. I thought I wrote down the wrong week, and then I realized I had the wrong papers. All right, so now I have the right papers. Week 12, and we should be able to get this done pretty quick, dear, because this is a super bye week. We have 6 teams on bye this week: the Falcons, Bills, Bengals, Jaguars, Saints, and Jets. And I know personally there's a few of those teams I'm glad we don't have to watch this week.
Yeah, for you fantasy football players, you're probably running around making some drop ads. There's a lot of good players that are out, and bad players you're going to be starting in your lineup. But if you make the right drop ads, you could be a winner this week. Hopefully we'll give you some insight there too.
Yeah. All right. So first game on the list is the Vikings at the Bears. This opened at Bears -3. It has shifted to Vikings -3.5. A lot of hooks this week, which I'm not real happy about. This is a division game. The Vikings have dominated this matchup over the last 3 years. The Bears' only win was the last one, November of 2023. The Bears won 12-10. But these are obviously different teams, different quarterbacks. Although I do feel pretty much the same about this game as I felt about the last 2 Vikings games. I don't trust Darnold, but I don't trust the rookie Caleb Williams against Brian Flores anymore. So I'm going to go with the Vikings. I'd like to get it at 3. I don't like the hook, but Vikings.
I love the hook at 3.5. The Bears are like a different team at home. They lost that Redskins Hail Mary at the end. Otherwise, they would be 5-1 at home right now. They're 0-4 away. So they're a whole different team, but they're +7 on the differential, their score differential throughout the season. So it tells me Bears are not that bad. You want to take the Vikings because they're 8-2, but they're playing on the road, a dome team coming out to Chicago. I know that you said that Minnesota, has had the hand against the Bears recently. The Bears have lost 4 in a row, and I just feel like, you're not, a lot of times you're not going to go 5 in a row. So 4 losses in a row. I think this spells a good spot. I think Minnesota's a better team. As you know, I like Sam Darnold, but I'm going to go with the Bears this week, especially with that extra half point.
Okay. Bears still do have some injuries on their offensive line. Their center is out, and one of their tackles, who has a really hard name to pronounce, is questionable. So
this has been like 3 weeks in a row that you've mentioned the offensive lineman.
Yes, and I haven't named names.
You still can't figure out what the guy's name is.
I haven't named names, and tonight I actually wrote them out. Now their center's name is Ryan Bates, but their tackle, I'm not even going to try it. So, all right, different sides of that one. Next game is the Bucs at the Giants. This opened at Bucs -1. It is up to Bucs -5.5. We have the Bucs coming off the bye. They should have Mike Evans back this week. He was a full participant at practice. Giants did bench Daniel Jones and then released Daniel Jones.
He's fresh off the presses. He just released him today, right?
They are going to Tommy DeVito instead of Drew Lock, which when I first heard this, I thought it was interesting that they don't have any desire to see what Drew Lock could bring to the table. Now, I believe that this is simply a monetary decision. Drew Lock has several incentives in his contract that if he were to play, they would have to pay most likely. So to me, that says to them, this year's over. So I don't know how competitive they're going to be. Players, actually, it seemed like a lot of guys in the locker room really liked Daniel Jones. So I don't know how that affects the locker room. The Bucs were very competitive in their last few games without Evans, without Godwin. So I think they can be competitive here now that they're getting Mike Evans back. So I'm on the Bucs.
I like DeVito. I think he keeps the fairy tale going. I'm not sure that they're going to win the game, but he should keep it close to within 3 points. They're at home playing against the Bucs. Like you said, receivers are injured. They are not the team that they were in the beginning of the season. They've lost a lot of games since Edwards went out the Bucs.
Evans. But they were very competitive in some of those games that they...
But 5.5 points on the road, I just think is too much even against the Giants, especially after there should be a lot of pride that kicks in based off of what just happened with Daniel Jones, basically meaning if Daniel Jones can get the boot, so can everyone else. So I'm sure a lot of people are going to be paying for their paychecks.
All right, different sides of that one. At least somebody's going to be right. Next game is the Patriots at the Dolphins. This opened at Dolphins -6.5. It's at Dolphins -7. Now, this is a division game. They played back in Week 5. That was Huntley versus Brissett. So obviously a little different scenario here. The Dolphins did win that matchup 15-10. All right, trivia for you. If I told you that Tua has faced the Patriots 6 times in his career, how many times did he win the game?
Once.
6.
Oh.
Do you believe that?
No.
Wow, 6. So to me, I think this game is going to go very similar to the way that both games went last week for these two teams. The Patriots, I think, will be somewhat competitive, but the Dolphins will pull away with the win like they did last week against the Raiders. So I'm taking the Dolphins.
All right, well, this is going to be the first game that we're on the same side. I like the Dolphins. I think Tua is getting warmer and warmer, right? Let's not get too crazy off the win last week based off them playing the Raiders. But this game is home, even though it's a division matchup. I like the Dolphins, even giving up as much as 7 points.
Yeah. All right. Next game is the Texans at the Titans. This opened at Texans -5.5. It's at Texans -7.5. Now, this is also a division game. These teams have not played yet this year. The Texans did win both matchups last year, won in overtime by 3 points, and the second game late in the season, they won 26-3. Now, other than the Patriots and the Cowboys, the Texans have not typically blown teams out. They haven't had any other wins other than those 2 by more than 6 points. Titans are 1-9 against the spread this year. Will Levis, who has played the last 2 games for the Titans, has actually not thrown an interception in his last 2 starts. I don't really want to pick the Titans. I just don't trust them, but I don't trust the Texans with this big of a spread either. So I'd have to get this either below 7 or put it in teaser.
I like the Texans. I just can't take the Titans. The Texans look like they're figuring out that they don't necessarily have to throw the ball 50 times a game. They can give the ball to Joe Mixon. And they had the formula last week where Joe Mixon was having a decent game, but really in the fourth quarter, they isolated, the Cowboys when it was deep into the game. They had to make sure they didn't give the ball up because the Cowboys were still kind of sticking in it. They were at the score 10 points away, and they just gave the ball to Joe Mixon to run the clock down, and he eventually scored. And that's the formula for winning in the NFL. Regardless of when you run the ball, you have to run the ball at some point, and it's almost a lock if you can run the ball at the end of the game and control the time of possession, control the clock, and not give the other team additional opportunities. That's the formula for winning in the NFL. I'm convinced. Texans show that they can do that. Even if the Titans keep it a little bit close, I think that the Texans can keep the game at the end beyond 7.5 points.
Okay. But you can't run on
What's your question?
You can't run on the Titans the way you can run on the Cowboys.
Well,
now,
you can do anything against the Cowboys.
Right. Well,
so that's a good point.
I bet Joe Mixon scored 3 touchdowns last week in that game, and I actually hit it because that's how bad the Cowboys are against the run.
I bet Houston minus 19.5.
So I just...
and hit it.
I mean, it's easy to run the ball in the end when you're up 20 points, but...
So I'm taking the Texans.
All right.
What are you taking?
I have no pick. Put the Texans in a teaser. That's my advice. All right. Next game is the Cowboys at the Commanders. This opened at Cowboys -2.5. It's up to Commanders minus 10.5. I don't. When does this open come from?
There's,
All right, so
I never saw 2.5.
This is also a division game. Obviously, a little bit different here. No Dak Prescott. And the Cowboys have a lot of injuries as well. So Jake Ferguson, their tight end, is already ruled out. Guard Zach Martin is doubtful. And guard Tyler Smith is questionable. Lamb was did not participate at practice yesterday, and then a limited participant today. So I don't know whether he will play. He didn't have a designation, so I guess he will. Now, this is actually my favorite game of the week because we have Dan Quinn. He was formerly the defensive coordinator for the Cowboys. Seems as though he did a pretty good job there with that defense, the way that the defense has suffered this year now that he's gone. He may very well have wanted the head coaching job there. Instead, he ended up in Washington. So I think he's going to want to stick it to the Cowboys, and I think he can, and I think he will. I don't love the hook. I would maybe alt-line it down to 9.5 and pay the juice. But I think this could be a blowout, which obviously doesn't seem like it's hard to do with the Cowboys. Anyway.
I mean, typically when these two teams play, you figure a really tight game. This is the Eagles feel like the Cowboys are their rival. The Giants feel like the Cowboys are their rival. But the real rivalry is Washington versus Dallas. So make no bones about it. As much as I want to say I hate the Cowboys and they're our number one rival, I know the Cowboys are looking at Washington as their number one. But I think Washington, for many of the reasons that you said, especially that their old coach is coming back to town and is probably really want to shove it where the sun doesn't shine with the running game with Brian Robinson. So I think the Commanders...
Brian Robinson, 2 touchdowns.
Yeah, I think that's a great play. And I think the Commanders win by, it's probably going to be at least 20.
Yeah. It could be. I don't think you necessarily have to be scared of the hook on the 10. But
I don't think Washington hasn't really beat them recently, right? Is it? I can't think.
I didn't even go back and look at that.
But I look at it as hey, if they're going to get up by 10, 17 points, they're going to look to put their foot on the throat of the Cowboys.
All right. So the next game,
especially with the new owner in town, he's going to want to show that he knows what the rivalry is and wants to probably gives the green light to go unsportsmanlike and run the score up.
Yeah. All right. Next game is the Chiefs at the Panthers. Opened at Chiefs -7. It's up to Chiefs -10.5. Obviously, the Chiefs suffered their first loss of the season last week at the hands of the Bills, which is almost guaranteeing that the Bills will lose to the Chiefs in the playoffs. But it seems like a lot of people are giving the Panthers a lot of credit at this point. And I don't think that because they won 2 games before their bye week against the Saints and the Giants, that means too much. I heard on the radio that Dave Canales had some weird comments in his press conferences. So I don't know specifics, but kind of made it sound like they're not that interested in winning games at this point in the season either. So, I mean, it should be easy for the Chiefs to win this game. Generally, you can't trust them with the big spreads. I don't know that even though this is one of the worst teams that they're facing, I feel any more confident in taking them at a big spread. So I would put these guys in a teaser and call it a day.
I'll take the Panthers. I think the Chiefs are just going to reel a little bit here, maybe not play it as close as people would think based off how good the Chiefs are. Coming off their last win, I think there's going to be a little bit of a letdown, or the last loss. So I think they're going to be a little down and not have that extra pump, especially playing with the Panthers. They kind of take a week off here, should win the game, keep it close. 10.5 is too much on the road. I'll take the Panthers.
Okay. All right, next game is the Lions at the Colts. This opened at Lions -2.5. It's up to Lions -7.5. Now, normally I love to take the Lions, and I love to take the points with the Colts because they have been a very good cover team. That happened last week with them having Anthony Richardson back at the helm. Now, the Lions obviously have the best point differential in the NFL by a mile. You can't run on the Lions, so That's kind of the Colts' path to keeping things competitive. So I am going to stick with the Lions here.
I'm going opposite. I'm going to take the Colts. I think Anthony Richardson's athletic enough to keep the game tight. I think you're going to get a line that's higher than 7.5 by the time Sunday rolls around. Again, this is Friday night. So open at 2.5, up to 7.5 minus lines. Colts at home. I just think that they can keep the game tight enough. I mean, I love the Lions, but the pressure is going to start mounting as they're playing for the number 1 seed and going to feel the pressure of every game. And I'm not sure that the Lions are there yet, but this should help them when they get into the playoffs. But as we get into crunch time here, I don't look at the Lions on the road as the play. I think this is a desperate Colts team with Richardson getting a start.
Question. Colts playing a dome, correct?
Yes, they do.
Okay.
Yeah, so they're both playing in the dome. The Lions are on the road. We'll see what happens.
All right. So different sides of that one. Next game is the Broncos at the Raiders. This opened at Raiders -3. It's at Broncos -6.5. Now, this is also a division game. These teams played back in week 5. Broncos won that game 34-18. I believe Gardner Minshew had like 4 turnovers. That's basically the game that got him benched. Raiders still have offensive line injuries as well as injuries in their secondary. So I do expect a similar result this week. It's kind of weird, but the Broncos are actually becoming one of my favorite teams to bet.
I'm on the Broncos, too. I just think the defense, if you get a good, strong defense against Gardner Minshew, he's not going to have success.
He's going to make
defense
mistakes.
is obviously pretty good. So I'm going to go, there was 34-18 the first time they played. Like you said, I think this is the game that
I think
got
the Raiders actually
Minshew
went
benched.
up early, and then it just all fell apart.
Yeah, I'm there with you. Like the Broncos, I think the defense is just too good, even though they're on the road.
All right, so next game is the 49ers at the Packers. It opened at 49ers -2.5. It had shifted to Packers -3. And then earlier tonight, kind of most of my notes here are irrelevant at this point. So around 5 o'clock, they ruled Brock Purdy out for this game. Nick Bosa is also out for this game. Trent Williams is questionable for this game. Brandon Allen is the backup quarterback for the 49ers. He's been in the league since 2016. I do remember him from being in Cincinnati for a couple of years. Their third string is Josh Dobbs. So I don't have much faith in Brandon Allen. We have seen Josh Dobbs play a game or two here or there competently. It wouldn't surprise me at all to see the 49ers shift the quarterback when like Sunday rolls around. But regardless, and I actually got the jump on Vegas in this one, and I logged into FanDuel and bet this when it was still 3 right after Purdy was listed as out on the injury report. But it's up to 5.5. I don't see the Packers are one team that had given the 49ers trouble in the last couple years. They almost beat the 49ers in the playoffs last year. So Shanahan, McVay, LaFleur all work together in Washington. They kind of like to, stick it to each other. And LaFleur has done a pretty good job in the games he's faced Shanahan in. So it was going to be a tough matchup, I think, for the 49ers anyway. Without Purdy, it just makes it even harder. So I'm on the Packers here.
I like the Packers as well, especially with Purdy being out. I just think that this is the worst timing for this Purdy injury to come into play.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's almost a good thing at this point for the 49ers because I don't know where they were going this season anyway at this point.
That's a good point. It might be the shakeup that they need, right?
At least a convenient excuse.
That's how the Purdy 49ers
Shanahan can maybe save his job. I don't know.
Yeah, like Packers.
All right, and then the next game is the Cardinals at the Seahawks. Opened at Seahawks -1. It is shifted to Cardinals -1.5. Cardinals actually on top of that division, but all the teams in that division are pretty close at this point. The Seahawks have dominated this matchup in recent years. They've won the last 5. I have not been impressed with the Seahawks this year. Cardinals are probably playing the best football that they have played in the Kyler Murray era. Normally, I like to follow the trends, especially in this division. But this year, I'm going to buck the trend. I'm going to take the Cardinals.
I'm taking the Seahawks. I like the Seahawks. I think they're going to close out strong and make the playoffs. The Cardinals are in first place, just a slight pinch ahead of everybody else in that division. I like the Niners probably lose. The Seahawks win, right? And you'll see what happens in the next game with the Rams versus the Eagles. But I like the Seahawks this one, plus 1.5 at home. Home dog.
Okay, different sides of that one. All right, so
You want
next
to bet
game.
on that one? That's the one. Yeah.
I mean,
let's
I
go.
will.
I will too.
I'm not
I love the
necessarily.
Seahawks. Take the Seahawks all day long. All day long.
Why do you love the Seahawks?
Because Kyler Murray's not going to win on the road. Not going to win this game on the road.
So you love the Seahawks because you don't like the Cardinals.
I don't like the Cardinals.
Okay.
But I do love Geno Smith. The grit, the glory that he got last week, beating the 49ers, running the ball in, taking a ball in his own hands and running it in from
So he made
13
one good
yards
play.
out. He made a couple of good plays.
He's thrown
right?
a lot of interceptions.
DJ Metcalf came back from injuries, getting a little bit better, healthier.
They also have-
We'll see what happens. Smith and Jigma.
Now, I've heard a lot
Ohio
of
State,
talk
that
about
guy-
him because the Cardinals, like,
They're finally giving
middle
him
of the
ball.
field.
They're finally giving him the ball. And don't forget about Lockett, okay?
Well, the reason they're giving him the
Lockett.
ball is because their offensive line sucks and Geno's under a lot of pressure and he's getting rid of it quick.
Well, remember they still have Kenneth Walker, too, so hopefully he can get off on the Arizona Cardinals front line.
All right, we shall see. All right, so next game is the Sunday night game, Eagles at Rams. It opened at Rams -0.5. It's at Eagles -2.5. Now, I have to tell you that my very first thought when I saw this line is the line too low? Is Vegas trying to tell me something? I'm not confident in this. I think if you look at the teams on paper, and one interesting fact about this game is obviously, is his name Nick Fangio or Vic Fangio?
Vic with a V.
or
Victory.
Vic
Victory.
Fangio.
Vic Fangio.
Vic Fangio.
Vic F.
VF.
Fangio.
VF. I can never.
Godfather.
It took me
of
forever to
defense
figure out what his name was.
of 2024.
So he was the defensive coordinator for the Bears back in 2018. He kind of stuck it to McVay in a Week 14 game. And it was that game that Bill Belichick used as his blueprint when the Patriots dominated the Rams in the Super Bowl that year. Held Goff to 3 points, blew up their whole running game. And so that's kind of obviously the, what is it, Fangio or Fangio?
Fangio.
Fangio. Defense is kind of rounded into form with the Eagles at this point in the season, right?
Vic
Fangio. Playing very good defense, right?
Better and better each week.
So now obviously this is 5 years ago. Teams adapt. But I guess who's going to get the best of who in this thing between Fangio and McVay is the question in my mind.
I'm going to tell you this real quick, if I could. I think so far your philosophy is flawed in the fact that Vic Fangio is not running his stereotypical defense.
Well,
He's got a lot of
now
playmakers, a lot of young bucks that are running around in that secondary,
but let me ask you this: back when they played the
he's sending the
Saints
blitzers.
in Week 3, did he not play like a 6-1 defense against the Saints?
The what happened before the bye, which was Week 5, is irrelevant.
Okay.
When they came out of the bye, they had a healthy Cooper DeJean, who was the second round pick at cornerback for the Eagles.
Okay.
With him and Quinyon Mitchell, they're basing their whole entire defense between those two guys in the back and the two linebacker studs up front.
Okay.
And they're blitzing a lot more so than, you got to remember, Nick Fangio is like the godfather of the
Wait a
defense.
minute. What's
the
his
Eagles.
first name?
Vic.
Like you just said Nick. See,
No, I
that's
said
where the
Vic.
whole
I said
problem
Vic 'cause
comes.
your ears
but
are-
Nick
you're
sounds like
sick and
Vic.
you're Vic.
Fangio sounds like Fangio. I'm just trying to.
E-I-E-I-O, dude. What the hell? Anyway, where was I going with this? They're like the bend don't break specialty, right?
Okay.
That's basically the defense that he runs. It's the same defense that the Eagles ran in 2022 under the Cardinals now coach Jonathan Gannon.
Okay.
Right. And there's a bunch of other guys that fall from that tree that are no blitz, no pressure, play D. Go get them with the ends.
But are you saying that Fangio doesn't blitz? Doesn't get pressure?
I'm saying that typically he doesn't. Here's my point, real quick. He's not playing the same defense. They had to scheme their defense because of what I'm telling you is that their players they're playing to their strengths. They had to change the way they were playing defense. They got the giant back so they can afford to play this way. But the linebackers are playing out of their mind.
My question.
And it's a different defense than when you're talking about back in 2018 when he ran it up on Sean McVay. So I'm just saying there is the outside shot there. Listen, I'm not saying this to deter you from the Eagles pick because I
didn't say I'm picking the Eagles.
I didn't say I am either. But what I'm trying to tell you is that it's flawed philosophy if you're looking back at a stereotypical defense as the reason why they match up good against McVay.
No, but here's my question. What he did back in 2018 was in this game adapt a defense specifically to address the offense that Sean McVay was running. And nobody else had done it at the time. And that was week 14. And nobody did it in week 15, week 16, week 17. Belichick saw it and adapted it when it came time in the Super Bowl. So what I'm saying is that is Vic Fangio going to adjust his defense this week to exploit weaknesses that he may see in Sean McVay's current offense? That's my question.
I know, it's a good question.
Okay.
But wonderful job of pronouncing Vic Fangio's name for the 7th time. You nailed it. On the 7th time, that was the 7th time, you nailed it, babe. Good job.
So my pick on this game, just on a team basis, would have been the Eagles. I truly believe that Vegas is trying to tell me to take the Rams. So I'm going to take the Rams.
Why is Vegas telling you that?
Because I think the line's too low. I think the line should be higher.
But the line came out at 0 and it's now up to 2.5. So they've moved it.
But right? I think the line
is still too low.
Yes.
What do you think the Eagles should be? What do you think the Eagles should be favored by?
To take the Eagles.
But they're on the road on Sunday night, right? That's the thing you got to take in consideration.
So you don't think the line's too low?
I think the wrong team's favored, to be honest with you.
What does that mean?
I think the Rams should be favored.
Why should the Rams be favored?
Because they're a desperate team here. The Eagles just came off. First of all, the Eagles are on a little bit of a layoff with 11 days. All right. It's not a full bye week where you can kind of just go get away for an entire week and then come back and do football. Like it's a weird 11-day off coming in, right?
But isn't it more time to prepare, more time to rest?
But it gets them a little bit out of a whack here. They're coming off this big emotional win against the Washington Redskins or the Washington Commanders, sorry. Right? Mm-hmm. The Eagles typically, first of all, they don't typically play well out on the West Coast. They don't usually travel well out there. But especially in these like prime time late games on the West Coast for like the last 6 years they just gone out there and got their asses handed to them late in the season like this game is on the West Coast in a prime time. Sometimes Seattle, right? Last year, this is also a revenge game off last year when they went out there in October and pretty much handled the Rams. You got Pika Niku coming back. He looks like he's pretty healthy. Pika Niku.
It's not Pika.
What is it?
It's Puka.
Pika. You knew who I was talking about. The receiver that's going to be running wild on Sunday night against the Eagles. I think that McVay is going to adjust here on Fangio. I think it's a bad spot for the Eagles. I like the Eagles where they're going, but this is a spot where they kind of take a step back. Bad spot in the ebb and flow of the season we talk about a lot. This is a horrible spot for the Eagles traveling out west. I will take the Rams, and I'm not even going to bat an eye, to be honest with you.
Let me ask you this. The game that Carson Wentz got hurt in, was that against the Rams?
It was.
Was it in L.A.?
Yeah, it was a 4:00 game.
Okay.
And they won the game, but theoretically the worst thing happened. They lost their MVP at the time. He was their MVP candidate.
But did they win the game?
They did.
Okay. You just said that.
They won the game because of Nick Foles. Everything's out the door when it comes to history stats when you talk Nick Foles.
Okay, so I guess my only thing with the Fangio-McVay thing is that I would trust Fangio to make the adjustments more than I trust McVay to do it. I don't feel like McVay is necessarily that great of a coach.
All right, who are you taking?
I'm taking the Rams.
Okay.
You're taking the Rams.
It sounds like we're both taking the Eagles, but in our discussion, but we're both taking the Rams.
But see, that's the
who
whole.
the fuck knows on this one, man?
But that's the whole point. But that's the whole point, isn't it?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like if everything tells you that you should take the Eagles,
Well,
but
just looking
Vegas
at
is
it
telling you not to.
from the season.
Or Vegas is telling you to, which means don't do it. Like they're begging you to take the Eagles.
Yeah. I agree.
They want you to take the Eagles.
I'll take the Rams.
Okay, good. We're on the same page. All right, and then the final game of the week is the Ravens at the Chargers. Open at Ravens -2. It's at Ravens
I bet you we're opposite on this one.
-3.
Not
Now,
even knowing.
this is the battle of the Harbaugh.
The hard rubs. Battle of the hard rubs.
Now I can't even say that. Harbaugh.
Battle of the Fangios.
Shut up. John versus Jim. Hey, which one of those brothers do you think is older? No.
John.
No, I didn't
Ravens.
ask
The
you
Ravens.
which one. I asked you which one do you think?
John.
Okay. I always thought that Jim was older, but it is John that is older.
Listen, John was coaching the Eagles special team when Jim was pretty much still in the NFL.
Well, they're only like 18 months apart, but
Well, that's why I thought he was older.
but I just by looking at them, I thought that Jim was older.
This is gonna be a great battle.
So these two brothers have faced each other twice in the NFL. Once was in the Super Bowl, once in the regular season, I assume when Jim was with the Niners. John won both matchups.
Yeah.
Right.
He definitely won the Super Bowl, Joe Flacco.
So obviously we have the Chargers came off the big win last week against the Bengals. Ravens lost pretty miserably to the Steelers. So I think this is a chance for the Ravens to get back on track.
Agreed.
And
I like where you're going.
I'm going to go with the Ravens.
I'm going Ravens too. I think
-3.
this is just a good spot for them. And I like John. When John matches up against Jim, I do like John. I was going to tell you that. 2-0. But I think just even from an ebb and flow of the season standpoint, with the Ravens coming off that tough loss last week, this is a win for them.
Okay. All right. So that is going to do it for us for week 12. If you're watching, remember to like and subscribe on YouTube. And so next week is Thanksgiving. So we will be back for the Sunday slate.
If you subscribe to the Facebook page, we'll put Thursday's picks that we like up on the Facebook page.
And I think there's also a game on Friday.
So we'll miss that game too because we'll probably do it Friday night like we always do.
But no bye weeks next week.
But go to the Facebook page for the picks on Thursday and Friday if we like anything on Friday.
Or the YouTube because we can put them in the YouTube comments too.
Yeah, let's see that
right.
for this week.
Peace out.